ESPN FC live on a Sunday at the Whistle. Mark Donaldson alongside Janusz Michallik. Good game, this one. Certainly better than the earlier one between Everton and Aston Villa. Manchester United 2, Tottenham Hotspur 2. Man United twice ahead, twice pegged back. And over the piece, Spurs were the better side. So, Janusz Michallik, who's that a better point for?
Better point for United, I guess. Yeah, it has to be said. I mean, Manchester United. Look, I'm almost kind of, I don't want to say done, but tired of dumping on Manchester United because every game I see worse and worse. And this wasn't actually all that bad, but I guess the bar is so low that, you can always pick at, Marcus Rashford doing some things and scoring a goal first at Old Trafford. You can look at a couple plays and say to yourself, oh, yeah, we could have won it at the very end. Well, you could have and should have lost it as well because to me, Spurs, like many other teams, come to Old Trafford and feel like they own the place and control the games. And, I listen to some of my friends, I listen to commentary and says, well, it's okay that sometimes you have to play an encounter. But again, this is Manchester United. So maybe the bar is so low that it's acceptable to play like this. And to me, here's a Spurs, Mark, with a makeshift midfield, right? That dominated anyway, dominated United in between spaces. There's so much room. They could have done everything. Makeshift front line and the back line that was finally the best, but you could see that some of these players, miss a lot of time. You look at Van de Ven with cramps and just weren't together. And really the two goals were mainly massive mistakes in the back from otherwise very good defenders.
Yeah, let's start inside 3 minutes, and it's Udogi's kind of inability to get much on the ball, and Rasmus Højlund, on the back of his recent winner, getting another goal inside 3 minutes. And are we finally starting to see the Rasmus Højlund that United thought they were getting when they signed him?
Maybe. I mean, it's too early to tell. I mean, right? I mean, couple of goals recently in the Premier League. I think he's working hard. The fans love him. They believe in him. So that's always good for a young player like this. I think the expectations were massive when you're at a club like this. You and I have talked about it in previous pieces today. And in general, I mean, Manchester United aren't alone in that. All the big clubs are struggling with number 9. So it just, as I've said before, Rasmus Højlund, I think maybe in time is going to be exceptional. But I still think at a club like United, he should be now learning alongside somebody else, right? Somebody that's better, more experienced, somebody that has history of doing that. But so yeah, I suppose it's a positive that he scored. One of very few, in my opinion.
Okay, equaliser in the 19th minute. I thought Pedro Porro had a brilliant game today, certainly middle to front and going
not
forward.
Defensively. I mean,
no.
He was terrible defensively, I thought, today.
Yeah, he wasn't good defensively. I thought Marcus Rashford had him on toast today. But he's on all the set plays right now with no Maddison, who's injured, and Son's away on Asian Cup duty with South Korea. So he sends in a delicious ball, and Richarlison is there. And I think that's like 6 Premier League goals he's scored in 6 recent games now, Richarlison. And would you expect United to defend that one better, or is it simply a case of that was just a brilliant corner and a really good header?
Well, look how many corners and how many dangers. There wasn't just one, right? I mean, remember Bentancur glancing header early. I think Dalot cleared it off the line. Then you have Richarlison scoring. Let's not forget about Bentancur's a sitter from 3 or 4 yards when he rattles the crossbar. And there were many others that were very, very close. So certainly, I mean, look at the number of corners they've had. If you were wondering about who was better, controlling the game is one thing, but I just thought that Spurs dominated in all the other games. But obviously, when you send so many players forward, you're going to allow a team like Manchester United to counter. And that's one part that they've done okay. But really, at the end of the day, they're getting 1 point. Because you look at some of the injuries that United had and everybody had. But imagine this game with this much space, right? Imagine this. I mean, that makeshift midfield did the job. And what if Sarr was there? What if Bissouma was there? Imagine if Maddison had the run of the place like they did today, because they really had a run of the play. Yeah. There were so many gaps in between the lines. Imagine Son, Kulusevski. I mean, this is crazy. So you look at the potential of the two teams, And it tells you everything, that a team like Spurs that's basically signing emergency players in this window, although, I mean, there's a longer term thinking, I think, but signing players just to put up a lineup. I mean, Van de Ven was probably playing as long as he did, because if you look at the Spurs bench, I mean, it was like really nobody.
Emerson Royale came on from eventually, didn't he?
Well, and Dragushin came in. That was that was one questionable decision, I suppose, because Van de Ven just coming back should have been off the pitch earlier.
Explain to the viewers, if you wouldn't mind, what Ange Postecoglou does with his fullbacks when they come forward.
Well, I mean, it's a freedom, freedom of that. Their starting position is very, very, very high. They come inside as well. Pedro Porro, in particular, is the one that goes forward. Of course, he normally relies on the likes of Bissouma or Sarr to protect that. I think Bentancur, after missing so much time, has done a tremendous job already, right? Because he kind of appears, then kind of sits a game or two because he's not 100% yet. Today, obviously, scoring a great goal as well. But this is just. And you kind of right. I mean, Porro was good going forward, and I think you take the risk in knowing that you're going to be late, because remember, on both goals, Porro was late in coming back, and part of that, I think that Ange will probably. He could have a go at me, and I understand it, is that when that happens, you don't expect a fullback to go forward when you ask him to and then be back in time, right? There's always somebody else that should cover for him. And today they didn't do a good job. The back four, and I'll include Vicario as a goalkeeper, right? Because he's part of that unit. They weren't at their best. So much was made of the fact that they're back, because remember how good they were early on in the season.
The reason I asked you that question at that point is so it can lead into Manchester United's go-ahead goal to put it to 2-1. And again, Porro has had his go forward, go central, get involved. But Rashford, this is the issue in transition a lot of the time in this game today. And that's, as you quite rightly and well put, succinctly put, you can't have one player doing absolutely everything. You need help. So he's trying to get back, and I thought it was a really good 1-2 between Rashford and Rasmus Højlund. Nice touch. It's the touch that sets up the goal, because it allows them that little bit of space. And is this the Marcus Rashford on his way back to what we remember him last season, because he's finally scored at home in the Premier League again for the first time since May?
Way too early to say, and not in a game like this, because it was a perfect game. And as you've mentioned, look, with Porro, the situation is even different, because we all know that Ange Postecoglou and Spurs play a very high line, very much like Villa and Liverpool and many others, really, right? And in doing so, they take the risks. They understand it. I mean, it's before the game, if you spoke to those managers, says, you know what, we're going to get caught 2 or 3 or 4 times, but we have to take that risk because rewards are greater than the risk we take. And so obviously I'm not going to spend time about shifting here, but we could. But in terms of Marcus Rashford, this was a perfect game, because United were allowed to play on a counter, which normally shouldn't be the case when they play on at Old Trafford, right? Normally they should put the opponent under pressure, where then all of a sudden you have to break down lower lying defense, and that wasn't the case. So it was a good game for him. He's had games like this where he didn't take advantage of that. So I want to give him credit for that, because I do, like everybody else, hope that he comes back near the form that he had last season. He's taken a lot of criticism from me, from everybody else as well. But as a former player, I want him to succeed. I want him to play as well as he possibly can. Why wouldn't I? So no, it's way too early for me, because it was a perfect game to do that, and he's done it to a certain extent. But he's had 2 or 3 or 4 other looks as well. Had he taken advantage of them, then maybe then we can say, wow, look at that goal, look at this goal, right? So I don't know, because there's I want to say, was that on the I don't want to say certain amount of luck, but I just think that Spurs on both goals have helped United tremendously.
Well, Udoghi's hit his own post. Romero should have done better with a header from close range, and that brought to an end a frantic, an excellent first half from a neutral's perspective. The second half maybe didn't quite have the same drama, but within 50 seconds, Spurs were level. And before we get to talk about the goal, Bentancur from Werner's assist, it's something that Ange Postecoglou has instilled in his squad. It's don't panic. You go a goal down, fine, okay. You'll get chances. Just take them. They went a goal down. They got it back to 1-1. They went 2-1 down. And then Bentancur scores to make it 2-1. Who's at fault from a United perspective here for not getting close?
Oh my goodness! You talking about the second goal? I almost have to. I mean, it was Timo Werner that was absolutely free. He had all kinds of time, to play that.
Hello, perhaps
three players. Because remember, Bentancur came from deep, right? So
yeah.
Eriksson was behind him. Christian Eriksen, all the power to him. We know all the reasons. I think we always cheer for him, but
he's
I don't
not
know
the same player.
I don't know how Ten Hag had to look at him. I mean, at halftime he should have been off. Mainu switched over to Timo Werner to 2-against-1 defensively. I'm not sure why. And then we saw why Johnny Evans. How old is he now? I mean, that's exactly there because, I mean, he was in quicksand. I mean, it was unbelievable how slow he was to Bentancur coming in. And it's not even a question of running around him, just setting it up for himself and taking his sweet time. So I think between Mainu, who maybe should have looked over his shoulder, because if Eriksson was behind, sometimes you think that he's going to get back in time, but that's not really, it couldn't have happened because he was already ahead of him, Bentancur, ahead of Eriksson. So I just think that Mainu, Kobe probably needed to look over his shoulder, and instead of going to Timo Werner, he was already covered by a player. I can't remember who it was at the moment. He should have probably picked him up right there. And Johnny Evans was way too late. It almost didn't look like he was trying. He probably knew there was no chance he was going to slide over in time.
So an assist for Timo Werner on his debut, lasted 18 minutes, replaced by Brian Hale. What did you make of his Spurs debut?
Yeah, pragmatic. I don't want to be nasty and say it came as advertised, but, let's give him some games. I mean, he should have known the league, right? Knows the pitches, knows everything. There was nothing in particular. Maybe he was, I think he was surprised that he was starting, right? Because if Kulusevski doesn't get sick, Timo Werner is not in the starting 11, and then you can work him in, give him some minutes. So, yeah, I'll take that back. I'm not going to be too harsh. He did get that assist. I mean, he played very, very safe. He had a couple of looks, the ones that we remember from Chelsea, right? The one on the left foot where he didn't make proper contact. But for the most part, you could see it, that he was always looking for help, always looking to pass the ball on rather than be proactive and take defenders on one-on-one and try to create something. So, okay, it's a second coming into the Premier League. Maybe give him some time, but I was always worried, right? Because if he wasn't used to the Premier League first time around, the worry should have been when he came back to Leipzig and Bundesliga, where he's certainly shown. And when was the last time he played for Leipzig? It's been a long time.
Yeah,
right. And by the way, that's a bit of an excuse as well, because in terms of game fitness, to be thrown right into the starting lineup, perhaps not expecting it at Old Trafford, it's a big ask.
When we're in the final minute, I think it's the 95th minute, 94 minutes and 12 seconds or something, Garnacho's got the ball on the left-hand side. Now, by this stage, he's about to deliver a cross in. By this stage, as you've mentioned, Van de Ven has gone off, Dragushin has come on, as has Emerson Royal. So they don't have the same defensive structure that they had, which was a 4 to begin with. And Scott McTominay is he's just walked into space. If he's wearing the proud dark blue of Scotland, he scores that, because he has done before.
Well, he's been scoring for United.
No, of course. But we're at a stage now. We've seen from his previous, he scores for Scotland. He scores for United. He's got to get that down. And if he does, he scores. A great cross in. But what a chance with practically less than a minute left in the game.
Yeah, and that would have not just slightly, I guess, for me, it would have changed the narrative of this piece that we're doing right now, because win is a win, right? That's all you have to say. And it's an important one against a Spurs team that's up there as well. And obviously a rival for, if you still think that United are going to be pushing for a top 4 spot. So, of course, that changes it. And it doesn't really matter if Romero missed it. He's missed it. It's still 2-2. And if he puts that away, it certainly changes the dressing room. And imagine that late in the game, of course, gives the players confidence. And now you have Lisandro Martinez back. Casemiro was on the bench. And then, as a coach, you have, at least you can say, well, we're getting some players back that are important to our team. It's a big win. We didn't play great, but ultimately, as you've said, we led twice, and now we won it very late. So of course it changes us. He needs to put that away, because he's been in a great form in the last, how many ever months, not just for Scotland, but even for Manchester United, scoring goals more so than some of the players that you rely on scoring goals. So but that's you Manchester United. I mean, and I almost feel, Mark, that they're unfixable, certainly by Ten Hag. Some doesn't square up.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, talking about unfixable, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was there, I mean, I had a conversation with you and everyone else. It's like, how are they going to fix this? And it was like, ooh, I'm not sure. But Ten Hag came in and won the League Cup and reached the final of the FA Cup and did well, got into the top 4. And it's not been as good this season. So the game that we saw today, 2-2 against Spurs, for me, that's probably a good game for Jim Ratcliffe to be at Old Trafford to see, rather than a comfortable FA Cup win over whoever, Eastborough or whoever they're playing in the next round, which is still to be decided with a replay. I think he saw there that, yeah, that second half, that it was like a library at times when Spurs had so much of the ball. So where does he start? I don't agree that it's unfixable. I think it might take time. But where do you start with something that needs a fair bit of work?
Well, I mean, if I look at Ten Hag, just look at him, right? But we also know his character, right? So tough, uncompromising, the way he's dealt with Cristiano Ronaldo, right? The way he's dealt with Maguire initially, the way he's dealt with Jadon Sancho, uncompromising, in fact, ruthless. And yet, right, so what he asks of the team. He doesn't put up with a lot. And then week in and week out, we see a team that's soft mentally, as soft as a sponge. How do you square these two things? So something's got to give, because this is a manager who, when you make a mistake, when you're not playing well, you're going to hear about it, and there are going to be consequences. And yet, in the second half, 50 seconds in, you come in, and Bentancur basically walks in a goal. I mean, think about it. So you're going from one extreme of this manager that, I mean, just Cristiano Ronaldo is one thing, but look at Jadon Sancho, right? So you're going from a manager like this, who's expecting perfection, and it's certainly not afraid, to let you know, to a team that week in and week out doesn't respond, and responds like this in the second half. That to me is incredible. That to me says it doesn't work. How do you change that? You have to change the character of your team and the players. Is it going to be possible in January? Most likely not, because obviously the money from Sir Ratcliffe is not going to be coming in. I mean, that's not going to be settled till February, I think they said today.
Yeah. True.
Unless, you have Alessandro Martinez, who a tough character. Maybe, Maguire has been better. Let's hold on saying how much better he's been, and is he, how much he's going to change the team. Casemiro, I mean, remember, the beginning of the season, right? Coming off a long break in the summer, when, the way he came in, unfit and all that, then injury. Well, I expect that is going to take him quite a while to make an impact. By then, season may be over. So I just don't know how to square these two things. Something's got to give. Usually it's the managers, right? Because it's for obvious reasons. But I just don't see how, with all the warnings he sent his team, with the 2 or 3 players that I've mentioned, this team is still not responding.
Well, that's one that has to be seen over a period of time to see if there is progress. And from these two teams, Spurs, yes, twice they've come back from a goal down, but ultimately, with all the pressure that they had, they would have maybe thought they could have taken 3 points from Old Trafford, which they didn't. But if they can get through this period without Son, and now that Maddison's on the way back within the next few weeks, is this a team that you think could get top 4 in a Champions League spot?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think, as I've said, if you look at the depth of the squad, just alone, right, and you start getting those players, I mean, they're third best team, and they're better than Arsenal. They're deeper than Arsenal. I mean, today was a great example of that. I mean, look at, imagine those players coming off the bench. I mean, this is not, I mean, I would almost even throw in Ivan Perisic, who's going to help you in a game or 2 or 3 with his experience alone, with the set pieces, the way he takes corners, the free kicks, just the winning mentality that he's had from club and country in his career as well, right? And again, I mean, James Maddison, I mean, let's not forget, this team led, it was top of the league early in the season when everybody was available. And then you continue to lose players every game, sometimes 1 or 2 within the games, and they still show up, as I've said, Bentancur, who's missed almost the entire season so far, Højbjerg, who they're trying to ship out, by the way, right? I mean, they're trying to sell him, and Oliver Skip, who hardly ever plays in that midfield, with Brennan Johnson, who just got there, Timo Werner, who really just got there a couple of days ago, and Richarlison, who's coming into form. So add all those players that have developed or maybe taken a chance at a time where some of the key players were out. The depth of the squad is very, very good. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to get everybody together back before the season, but I suspect they will get most of them back. I'll tell you, that's a lot of options there, within the game, right? To manage the game and when everybody starts getting tired because the season's long, because the European competitions and all of that, and you look at on the bench and you may have, Richarlison, Timo Werner sitting on the bench coming in, or maybe Kulusevski can come in from the bench because he's getting rested, right? Look at that midfield. Just think about that. Bissouma, Pape Sarr. You have James Maddison and then Bentancur, who can either defend or attack, box-to-box type of players, great on set pieces as well. I mean, that just alone, it gives you so many options. So I think it's going to be interesting because Villa will have a say. It's a different season altogether because you have quality teams. Arsenal will bounce. I'm convinced that they will still have a decent run. But if I look at the quality and the depth of squad, to me, Manchester City, Liverpool, and Spurs, those are the three deepest teams right now in the Premier League.
Enjoyed that one today at Old Trafford. Janusz, thank you for your time. A reminder, ESPN FC Live every Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday. And then at weekends, we look back on the whistle at the games that have taken place. At Old Trafford, it finishes Manchester United 2, Tottenham Hotspur 2. Bye for now.